After the 2014 Gaza war, one of the many Israeli-Palestinian conflicts in the 21st century, a survey was conducted to determine how each party viewed the other. The basis for the survey was quite simple. It was to document how both counterparts engaged in mutual dehumanization within their discourse. And to achieve such results, the surveyors utilized Rudolf Zallinger's The March of Progress image from 1965 to help pinpoint the ratings of both the Israelis and the Palestinians. From the point of view of Palestinians, Israelis were on average rated 37% less than the full modern-day human. For Israelis, they viewed Palestinians slightly lower on the scale, 40% lower than the full modern-day human. Now you'll say that this is pretty even. Both sides identically thought less of the other. It was natural, as they were combatants in a long-winded and violent struggle. The dislike and dehumanization was obvious and understood. But I would disagree. You see, these two positions differ greatly. One is the byproduct of decades of injustice, suppression, and occupation, characterized by a slow and gradual progression from a starting point of egalitarianism that then was followed by many unjust and violent Zionist-driven incidents that led to the eventual decline and arrival at a point where one party believed that the other lacked a certain humanity characteristic about them. The other position is totally contrary. The starting point of dehumanization of the counterparty was literally off the charts, originating at the extreme, from a position of total non-existence on humanity's March of Progress chart. This was the perception from the very beginning by the Zionists. Palestinians were never rated as human. They belonged on a different chart altogether. We keep using the word dehumanization, but what does it really mean? It's quite simple. It's when one group of humans believe and are convinced that another group have no real emotions, feelings, as well as no substantive human mental capacities. And any cruelty or suffering that is caused upon them is inconsequential and undeserving of reaction or sympathy. So what is found is a moral disengagement from any heinous acts or their consequences that might impact the affected group. This attitude then entails that social norms don't apply to this dehumanized group, in accusing them of being a people without culture or civility. The same attitude then extends to international law when we see the alienation of any human rights of the stigmatized group. Palestinians have experienced the full range of dehumanization, the erasure of their existence from discourse, from idiomatic language, the abandonment of individuality, and a reduction to abstraction. And this is the root of all the problems, a reduction to an abstraction. Layers of dehumanization have to do with three main factors of recognition, and first of these factors is that of a lack of recognition of accountability. The admonition that one party is the cause of the pain and suffering of the counterparty. On the next, deeper level, it is the lack of a recognition of sympathy, that one party is unsympathetic to the counterparty and its struggle. And finally, and the worst level of all dehumanizations, is that of the non-recognition of the existence whatsoever of the counterparty. The recognition of Palestinians by Zionists on all these fronts never really happened. Neither the admission of the responsibility for the suffering of the Palestinians, be it now or in the past, nor the recognition of any pain or suffering of the Palestinian people. Not even the most basic act of recognitions, the mere existence of the Palestinian people as a human entity. You see, once recognition of Palestinians as humans takes place by the Zionists, then the whole Zionist narrative collapses. All the revisionist history and the fabricated stories and myths that were utilized by the Zionists wouldn't make sense and would hold Zionists accountable of crimes against humanity. So instead, and as part of the dehumanization mission, any injustices imposed on Palestinians were not necessarily wiped away, but were legitimized and considered as positive results. This has been a long and drawn-out process that started well before the creation of the Zionist nation. From the moment the misrepresentative phrase, "a people without a land for a land without a people," became commonly circulated amongst Zionists in the West in the late 19th century, did the dismissal of Palestinians show its teeth, and the lack of recognition of the Palestinian people over the course of the next century plus would then come often and heavy. It wasn't one level of dehumanization that took place. The easiest was to dismiss Palestinian existence entirely. This was the common practice by the hardline Zionists. The more centrist Zionists utilized animalistic and behavioral dehumanization, often referring to them as filthy animals, insects, savages, and more often than not, non-human. One Zionist position I'd like to clarify that is very relevant to this discussion and in how perceptions feed the discourse is that Israeli Jews, specifically, are more human than all the people on earth, an elite human status that is above even the Jews of other nationalities. So Zionists, in fact, do not only dehumanize Palestinians, or on a larger scale the Arabs, but they have that same perspective towards all non-Jewish humanity. The poor Palestinians simply occupy the lowest rung of that humanity ladder. A simple example of this is how the Israeli educational system is guilty in propagating and brainwashing their young students in the practice of dehumanizing Palestinians. A calculated Zionist strategy that removes any and all history concerning their supposed homeland. Nothing is taught about their holy land from the Second Temple before Common Era till the establishment of the nation of Israel. That's 2 millennia of missing Palestinian history, as if the lands were suspended in a Zionist purgatory of history. But if we really want examples of how Zionists truly convey their thoughts and beliefs concerning their condescending perceptions of Palestinians, we only have to look at the plethora of tangible evidence that has come from the Zionists themselves. In 1914, Moshe Smilansky, a Zionist leader and author, stated that we must not forget that we are dealing here with a semi-savage people, which has extremely primitive concepts. A couple of years later, and the Balfour Declaration primarily clearly highlights Jewish Zionist aspirations, with non-existent reference to the Palestinian Arabs, the real majority inhabitants of the territories, choosing simply the diminutive and generalized term non-Jewish communities in Palestine instead. Chaim Weizmann, in 1918, one of the 2 authors of this declaration, represented his thoughts on the Palestinian people. The poor, ignorant Arab peasant does not worry about politics, but when he's told repeatedly by people in whom he has confidence that his livelihood is in danger of being taken away from him by us, he becomes our mortal enemy. The Arab is primitive and believes what he is told. Ze'ev Jabotinsky, the founder of the terrorist group Haganah, elaborated, "We Jews, thank God, have nothing to do with the East. The Islamic soul must be broomed out of Eretz Israel. Muslims are yelling rabble, dressed up in gaudy, savage rags." Now these examples involved references to Palestinians as savages, as primitive, as having reduced mental capacities, and also as having not existed as a people. And all this was before the creation of the Zionist state. Having a state wasn't enough for the Zionists. Crushing the Palestinian cause and right of return, though, was a necessary task, and hence, a steady mission to disappear the Palestinians was on the books. To diminish their humanity so that what was to come in terms of unjust acts would be overlooked by the supposedly civilized world. Here's Golda Meir, the former Israeli Prime Minister in 1969.
But I say there is no such thing as a distinct Palestinian people.
In response to a question on how to deal with Palestinian stone throwers, Rafael Itan, the former IDF Chief of Staff, said, "The Arabs will only be able to scurry around like drugged roaches in a bottle." His response alluded to a strategy concerning the Palestinian uprising in the West Bank. Tens of new settlements would be built, thereby locking in and choking the Palestinian people. And finally, we have 2 more recent impressions of Zionists peddling dehumanizing language regarding the Palestinian people. Here's Yoav Gallant, the former Minister of Defense.
הכל סגור, אנחנו נלחמים בחיות אדם ואנחנו נוהגים בהתאם.
And the second is Dan Gillerman, the former Israeli United Nations envoy.
You know, I'm very puzzled by the constant concern which the world and also Britain, I must say, Mark, is showing for the Palestinian people and is actually showing for these horrible, inhuman animals.
And this is where the dehumanization of Palestinians resides in the current moment, as animals or as subhuman. But the important question remains, why the hate so early in the process that led to immediate non-recognition of an existence, of a culture, of an identity, of human emotions and rights. Even before the immigration from Europe in the early 20th century, why all the hate if they didn't even yet get to know the Palestinian people? And then I stumbled on this quote, who I can't comfortably attribute to any specific author. What they hate in you is what is missing in them. And then it all made sense to me. Zionists were angry at fate. Zionists were jealous of the Palestinian people. Here was a homogeneous population of people, ethnically integrated, religiously tolerant, culturally rich, ingrained within and belonging to a land, whom had factual history on their side, an identity that represented everything the European Jews at the time didn't. And then it was necessary to rip away that reality from the Palestinians and introduce themselves into the Palestinian story. Palestinians had to be vanished, preferably physically, but if not possible, then from memory and history, and from humanity and its future. And the best means to this end was to make them appear less human, to strip away any feelings that they might have, to deny rights and to prohibit sympathy from anyone who might witness the unjust deeds that would eventually take place. Today, the condition of the Palestinian people in the occupied territories becomes bleaker by the day. What little hope seems to be fleeting, and all this injustice comes down to one fundamental conviction: that Palestinians are less than human, don't deserve compassion or any basic rights. This isn't new or news. It's been newly discovered, yes, but Palestinians have been experiencing this lack of recognition as humans from the very beginning of the Zionist settler colonial project. And this plan has not only convinced Israelis that Palestinians don't deserve anything, but has also indoctrinated much of the world to believe in the same. Even some Arabs are guilty of this mindset. Many nations, without missing a beat, mourn the dead of the Holocaust, an event that took place over 80 years ago. While the ethnic cleansing and genocide happening right before their eyes in the occupied territories gains no traction for sympathy. Palestinians are indeed humans. Many are of the best kind, prideful, courageous, honorable, and resilient. They have been fighting for their rights for freedom and to a home, regardless of their weaker position. Now, if that isn't the definition of human, I don't know what is.